last time you prayed a prayer of 1,000 words. But here we are.
Thank you. It's good to be back. Good evening, viewers. It's always good to be here.
Yeah. Well, Dr. Patricia, we are looking at the dilemmas and navigating the ethical dilemmas as a leader. But just to begin with, explain to us or give us a broader interpretation of the word ethics.
Ethics originates from the word ethos, which is a Latin word. And ethics is about values. Ethics is about abiding by certain principles which determine how you conduct your life as an individual and what inspires your decision-making processes. It's about standing to rules of truthfulness, of honesty, of accountability, of fairness and justice in decision-making processes. So a leader who is ethical normally relies on those principles. So when we talk about ethical dilemmas, it is an integral part of leadership today, because leadership presents with complex situations that necessitates difficult decisions while maintaining integrity. So as leaders, we have to maintain integrity even while we make those difficult decisions, because we face a variety of ethical challenges today, and which necessitates careful navigation and decision-making on our part as leaders. We are called to navigate through situations that are complex, but we navigate through these situations also with integrity. So what guides our decision-making are those values, are those principles. And then we can use different strategies and approaches which we can employ to make these ethical decisions we are talking about. So when we get to a point where we get to address these ethical dilemmas, we've got to address them with integrity, which is a very critical role in a leader's life, because leaders' decisions affect many people out there. The decisions we make has got implications. And I remember one of the decisions I took recently, it had serious implications. But I had to look at what is the truth about what I was saying, and how would it affect the people? What about the culprit or the victim? What are the implications of that decision? So there are strategies and approaches which we as leaders can take to help us make ethical decisions, taking into account the individual and the contextual factors that also influences this ethical decision making. Because as leaders, like I said, we are faced with a variety of complex issues we deal with. But as we deal with those issues, can we still remain ethical? Can we still make those decisions with integrity? Because ethical leadership is critical in today's leadership, because it comes up with a set of issues which we need to apply in making decisions. We need to think about the values, we need to think about the standards, we need to weigh in between and navigate through these dilemmas while taking these decisions. So ethical leaders normally prioritize those values. They prioritize transparency, honesty, accountability, and integrity in order to set a positive tone for leadership, especially in decision-making processes.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Dr. Patricia. I love it when you say sometimes you need to take that bold decision.
and also stand by it. Some leaders take a decision, then they begin saying, no, it wasn't me. But I'm here to say it was me. I thought carefully through it. It was backed and guided by the provisions of the law. And then also in my heart, I know that it was the right decision to take to guide this country and save it from serious problems, irrespective of the criticisms. Because as leaders, we also face adversity. People will criticize you, cut you left, right, and center. But are you able to keep your head high and sail above the storm or the tide and come out victorious in it? So I would like Ugandans to weigh through such decisions which are taken by leaders and think about the implications, because there are people who take on the political aspect and begin, and try to water down important, significant decisions we leaders take for the good of this country.
I think sometimes it is because they don't get a chance to be explain to why some of these decisions are being taken. Then we're looking at ethical dilemmas. How can you categorize them? What are they even? What are these dilemmas? Because Dr. Patricia has kept on referring to the ethical dilemmas. Ethical dilemmas, what are these dilemmas?
I think she's explained it quite well. In many ways, there are things that leaders have to deal with that put them in a place where they are deciding in their value system, their moral code, and how they can navigate that to bring a decision that is favorable to everybody. And so in her discussion, I think the thing that she has labored to explain is that everybody will go through them, whether it's an organization, whether it's a family, even then, because it tugs at at the core of who you are and what you believe in. And so there are different kinds of ethical dilemmas that any leader will face. And I think the most obvious you're going to have is corruption, where Dr. Patricia sits. And corruption is something that is rampant wherever you are. It starts off as taking one thing from somebody that seems harmless. It can even be what people call politics and playing office politics, because they're trying to take from the office, and then they will approach things in such a way that they are deplenishing resources that they were never entitled to in the first place. And so if you as a leader are seated in a workplace and you know that someone, your junior or even your senior, is involved in corruption, the dilemma now becomes, do you sacrifice the office and the way the office name and reputation and then deal with this particular thing? Or things such as conflict of interest, where many people leaders find themselves. You started a business, especially where you were sole proprietor. You started a business, you have an idea where you want the business to go and to grow and to be in a couple of years. So you onboard people. There will always be a conflict of interest between what the organization wants and what your priorities are. And that's where you find many people taking the decision and reminding people that I am the boss, I am the sole proprietor, I started it. It's really a conflict of interest, and it's an ethical dilemma that anyone who is a sole proprietor will always face. You have different things such as abusive and intimidating behavior by different workmates. When you have people coming into the same space, there are always people with a different value system as opposed to your value system. So you have some people who are maybe bullies because of maybe unhealed trauma. You have people who are going through their different episodes. And so as a boss, or as a leader, you need to balance and weigh for yourself what is good for the entity and what is good for this person. And so you come up with ideas such as forming frameworks and ideas and policies that will enable you deal with it in a way that it never reoccurs in the office. Imagine if the boss is now, or someone who is a manager is now a bully or intimidating other people. It's a difficult one because you have grown this person through the ranks, you have allowed them to arise in the ranks, but then you see that their juniors are being bullied. So how do you deal with it? You help the person save the reputation of the business. There are so many others that can come up: employee rights, white collar crime, people are taking from the office that shouldn't be taking from the office. How then do you deal with that? Diversity and inclusion. These are things that we are faced with on a daily. Many Christians, let me just say this, have the narrative that I only employ Christians, same as other religions. They have the dilemma that they will always employ their particular people. So when you're talking about diversity and inclusion, many programs require that you're receiving funding if you can display diversity and inclusion. And it's a difficult thing when you're saying, as a function of my business, my values and my morals, I only employ this kind of people. Let's take this further. Say, for example, your value system as a country allows something, and your culture allows something, your traditions allow something, but a different country and culture does not allow that decision. So you find yourself in a place where people are saying, let's be inclusive of everybody and their voice, but we don't subscribe to certain things. It may not necessarily be a crime, but it's something that's a moral dilemma for many of us. I think the country, more than anything, has thrown itself, particularly in that discussion this year, when it comes to the discussion of homosexuality. Our culture, our tradition does not allow for certain things. The penal code criminalizes anything that would promote this particular aspect. And so the politicians found themselves in a place where they were discussing a dilemma. Is it an ethical dilemma, or is it a dilemma that anyone could deal with? It's a very difficult narrative. And so every person began to sell it in a way that works for them. So people sell it with the aspect of it's human rights, and human rights are being violated. But is it truly a human right? Is it truly a human right? Yeah. And so you have people who are saying it is human rights. You have people saying we have a culture and tradition to protect and to uphold. You have people who are saying no, we are Christian. It's anti-biblical, or even other religions also saying it is anti their beliefs, their religious beliefs. So the leaders have an ethical dilemma to navigate. How then do you come to a decision that is both inclusive and allows diversity? And so it brings into aspects things such as, what are your core values? What are your morals? What are the things that distinguish you as a nation? Where do you draw the line on sovereignty? And those are decisions that leaders have to navigate. So whether it's community versus individual, whether it's family versus individual, whether it's a boss versus employee, all these are categories and dynamics that you have to navigate. And as a leader, the moral principles and your moral fabric and your value system should be your guiding point at all times.
Thank you so much, Diana. Dr. Patricia, I'll still get back to you, referring to what you just talked about, the recent dilemma. We are not discussing the dilemma, but we can use that as a basis for our discussion so that someone can pick something out of it. Last week in your absence, we were discussing balancing work and faith. And then gave a statement that faith is the basis of work. Now I'm bringing it back here. What happens if you find yourself in a situation where you take this decision? It is, according to the ethics, according to the principles, according to the laws, it is what you should do. But the people you are supposed to work with, the people who are supposed to effect it, are not willing to take it up, or they will still stand against that particular decision.
You see, Edrine, when you look at these ethical dilemmas, especially in leadership, they're like landmines. If you don't watch your steps, it will blow you up and mess you up completely as a leader. But as a leader, what is expected of us is to stand by our principles, like Diana has explained. So if you have taken a decision, which you know within yourself is the rightful decision to take, it is backed by the law. And as a Christian, even your values are addressed and properly absorbed therein. We can find a way of dealing with it and helping the other people see from your perspective. Because as leaders, we are in charge of many people, and you have got the responsibility to model the experience, to model the example you want the other people to be. So in modeling that example, you should have those values of truthfulness, of honesty, of integrity. And as Christians, for us, righteousness and truth are the foundations of the throne of God. So each time you take a decision, you ask yourself, would God be happy with this? Is it righteous? Is it truthful? What impact will it have on the people out there? So leaders normally have to apply that ethical compass to guide the decisions we take, because it influences our credibility as leaders. It also helps to build trustworthiness among the people we are leading, and also overall success of the team. You see, when we stand by our principles and you're able to stand and defend it, and you know it is, even the people out there will see it eventually. And the Bible says the truth and nothing but the truth shall set them free. So when you stand by the truth, of course there are common ethical dilemmas in leadership. Sometimes you find people are caught in between. There is conflict of interest.
Yes.
So as a leader, you should come out and declare that I cannot be in this panel because my cousin brother is coming in to be interviewed. I have conflict of interest. But some people sit there and they want to guide him so that he takes a job. Then later on they will say nepotism, which is an act of an offense under corruption.
But do you have people who can do that?
Yes, we have many. Haven't you seen people who you take up a position, you're from Itinkalu, and everybody around you is coming from Itinkalu?
Yeah.
Because you are practicing nepotism.
No, I mean, someone who walks out of an interview panel simply because the relative is part of.
Yes, we do. We have people who declare their conflict of interest. Some time back, I was invited to sit on a board in interviewing people in Uganda Management Institute, where I have been an associate consultant for some time and teaching the PhD class. I was invited, and then one of my students, former students, happened to come up to be interviewed. I declined to be on the panel. I told the board chair, please, I don't think I could be here because it's my own student. It was not only my own student, but also a colleague who works at the Uganda Human Rights Commission. That time I was still working with the Uganda Human Rights Commission. So I was like, yeah, I'm a commissioner there, and this person has come. I cannot be in this panel, surely. And the chairperson of the board said, well, it is okay, then you can. And the interviews went on, an assessment was done. That is how it should be. But if I sit there and I know that this person, you normally, automatically will have a soft spot for your own student and you want to award, So navigating these ethical dilemmas, normally we need to have that ethical compass to guide us as leaders to strategically make these decisions. And then we should be purposeful and intentional to always think about those values, because this influences our credibility. It also helps to build trustworthiness, and also it helps us to achieve success as a team. Because leaders who embrace moral values and make decisions with integrity, they inspire trust, they inspire loyalty, and their team members work with them even better. But those disregarding these ethical values, they basically get backlashes, negative consequences, potential legal troubles, and so on. So as leaders, we really need to always think out of the box and learn how to navigate through these dilemmas. Because like I said, they can be like a landmine. If you don't watch your footsteps, then it blows you up. Yes, it blows you up. Well, but if you watch your footsteps, then you're able to avoid and take critical decisions. So we need to understand.
You're still giving us the common dilemmas, and you gave us only one.
Yes, we need to understand. We need to understand the types of dilemmas that we have as leaders, that we face, and it's an important aspect of ethical decision making, especially in leadership. And leaders can better understand the complexities they face, especially when they prepare themselves to handle these dilemmas with integrity by identifying them and dealing with them early. In the fight against corruption, we are faced with decisions in respect of cases we handle, in respect of the strategies we plan, and even implementation of some of the orders we take. Those are some of the dilemmas. But we have like conflict of interest, which I shared, and then also confidentiality, because you have to maintain confidentiality among your teams in order to build trust. There are some people who do not keep secrets, even if they take an oath of secrecy. Something small has happened in the office. It's all over the place. So we need to build that confidentiality. And then the ethical culture, modeling ethical behaviors and practices within institutions. So as leaders, we need to train our people, equip them with the mechanisms of how they can build that culture within themselves of ethical behavior and practices. Some people come late and then they give excuses of jams. Now that today it rained, the traffic jam, it rained. And then others forge cases. I have lost somebody, I've lost this person. Oh, my child is sick, today I'm not feeling well, and so on. But what does your heart say? We need to stick to these values and principles we stand for. Actually, when you say you're sick, the devil will hear and make you sick instantly. the actual sickness will come. Then we have challenges to do with resource allocation, to do with whistleblowing. Now we are caught up with issues where some people come and do whistleblowing, and we get genuine good cases which we handle in the inspectorate. But there are people also who bring, who come and whistleblow unfounded things. Just because they have enemies, they want to fight out there, or they're dealing with their office politics, and they're like, now the only way I can smear Edrine is to go and report him that he was involved in this impropriety and so on. So we those are some of the dilemmas. But when we investigate such cases, we quickly think through and make a quick decision to hold, and then send the necessary correspondences and let the parties know the status, keeping them updated. So you realize that we're supposed to keep people updated. Communication lines should be quite open to help us be able to handle such issues. And if people know the status of their cases, then they basically build trust on the organization and the people who work therein as well. But the real thing is, Edrine, we need to stick to the other values of honesty, of truthfulness, of integrity, and when we take decisions with those values, then we don't go wrong, even if they're complex decisions which are difficult to make as leaders.
Thank you so much, Dr. Patricia. We are taking a short commercial break. When we return, we are continuing with this discussion on navigating ethical dilemmas as a leader. Stick with us.
For God so loved the world that he gave his only Son, that whoever believes should not perish but have eternal life.
Because once Christ warns about something, it calls for attention as believers. When God warns us about something, it means that we are susceptible to it.
Finally, be strong in the Lord and in the strength of his might. Put on the whole armor of God, that you may be able to stand against the schemes of the devil.
This is Church of Uganda Family TV, enriching lives.
Welcome back from the commercial break, especially you who is just joining in. We are talking about navigating ethical dilemmas as a leader, and a lot is being said, especially as a leader. What do you need to do when you happen? Because Adena told us that everyone, soon or later, will have these dilemmas. It is important how to go about them when they come. We are talking about principles, we are talking about strategies and things to do like that. Then, you're the one who initiated this, that soon or later, a dilemma will come, or dilemmas will come. So, no option. You can't sit back and laugh at someone and say, okay, go through it, we are enjoying.
Dilemmas come every day.
Maybe if I can ask, Are there people who go through more dilemmas than the others?
Of course. Of course. I mean, the president of the nation goes through more dilemmas than I ever would, because your sphere of influence determines what you're going to face on a daily.
Okay.
His sphere of influence is he has a whole entire country to run. He's balancing the citizenry, he's balancing neighbor rights, and he's also balancing international community. So you, as a president, you have so much on your plate. You're not going to be Diana, who doesn't even have a family to balance. I don't
Actually, we were taught
school to balance. Maybe
we were taught that the higher you go,
Yeah.
the cooler it becomes. But I've realized in
The higher you
leadership,
go.
the higher you go, the hotter
it becomes. It does.
What
It does.
about those who say higher level, higher devil?
You see, that's one way of looking at it. It's like saying that glass is half empty, half full. And I think we've sold that narrative as a church, that every time, the higher you go, the higher the devil you are. But you also must realize you have more help when you are higher. You have more access to help. Even if you don't see it, you have more access to divine help than you have in terms of the devil. He's not that strong. Don't give him that much power, because yes, you will have more things coming after you. Yes, you will have, and it's not that it's more, it's just that it's a bigger scale. It's a bigger scale on a larger level, and it's more public. When people say that person fell and they fell really big, no, they are saying their fall was more public than it would have been. The same thing would have happened to you in a smaller level. It's just that you have come from so far. The higher you go, your sphere of influence increases. And as it increases, it means your responsibility, your level of accountability, and how you carry yourself matters. So everybody who, as a leader, everybody who rises in a place of leadership, what they're really saying is that your sphere of influence is increasing. Today you are affecting a few, tomorrow you are affecting many more. It's not just your family, your community, it's the people who listen to you. And so you become responsible for how you present yourself, what you tell people. You've seen many times that some people are arrested for what you call inciting violence compared to somebody else who is a nobody, and they run the same way on social media. Why? It's because you have a bigger following. People's ability to rely on you, to trust you, to believe you without checking facts is higher than anybody else. And so because of that, your sphere of influence will always increase. So your dilemma, your ethical dilemmas become much more.
Okay. Now, how? Because Dr. Patricia has already told us that being truthful, honesty, integrity, other things. But we look at someone who, even when they want to stand on these principles, the waves are so strong to make them stand. How can they go about that?
The reality of life is that the higher you go, the more you have different interest groups to adhere to. So if you're in the position of a president, or even not just the president, someone who is in a higher level of authority, making decisions as a single person becomes limited for you. You're not going to have the luxury of sitting and making a decision in your cocoon at your home, and you say, and even if you're the face of the organization, that luxury reduces the higher you go. The truth about it is you have multiple counselors around you. You have people with different giftings, people with different talents, people with different ideas, and they are your blind side. Because each of us has a blind side. And because we have a blind side, we need people around us to give us a different perspective that causes us to think differently. I think you've heard the term groupthink. Every time you put people around you that think like you, you're not going to grow beyond that group. That's why they say, tell me your friends and I'll tell you who you are. Show me who you are, who your friends are, the 10 of them, and I'll tell you who you are. The idea is that when you are constantly around each other, there will be a group think. So you need somebody that's out of that thinks differently, that has a different perspective, and so they are able to give you a different viewpoint and a place that will allow you think differently.
Okay. Thank you so much. As if Dr. Patricia wants to add on that. I see you somehow tickled.
Well, I'm fully convinced with what Diana was talking about, because you realize that when you navigate these ethical dilemmas in leadership, it's not only easy, but it's also critical for you to grow for being an effective and respectful leader. The kind of decisions you take will cause people to believe in you or to run away from you. So by reflecting on your values, by seeking advice like she was talking about, considering the consequences, being transparent, and even learning from the experiences of others helps to sharpen you as a leader. So it is important to embrace the journey with guidance, to always consult, and also be guided by the ethical compass we are talking about with the other values, and make a difference, especially in the lives of the people we lead. So as leaders, we need to constantly reflect on our values. Seek advice from trusted colleagues or even from mentors, because you can't display yourself like you know it all. But it's important to seek advice from colleagues, from mentors. That's why we have consultative meetings in the boardroom to tackle certain issues. Then we also need to be considerate of the consequences. If you're taking a decision, if it's an ethical dilemma you're dealing with, think about the consequences on others and be as transparent as possible and learn from previous experiences. If you have burnt your finger once or twice, you wouldn't want to keep burning the same finger again. So sometimes we learn our lessons the hard way and be able to sail out of it. Navigating ethical dilemmas require some unique set of skills that goes beyond even the standard of leadership qualities. We talked about the moral compass. An ethical leader must have a strong moral compass that guides our decisions. Addition to what we have said, reflect on your values, seek advice, consider the consequences. But the moral compass we are talking about is a fact that is it seated on the ethics, the truthfulness, the accountability, the honesty, the integrity. Then the next thing is empathy, ability to understand and relate to the emotions and experiences of others. Sometimes as leaders, you're confronted with an issue, but we need to think about the emotions and experiences of others and show empathy. And then communication skills. Are we able to communicate? An ethical leader must have strong communication skills to ensure that the decisions they're taking are communicated effectively, so that the people around us don't just hear it as rumors, but they rely on information that is effectively communicated to them and they can act on it. So as we do our work and navigate through these ethical decision-making processes, it's important for us to first of all know that these ethical dilemmas exist, especially in leadership positions, and we require a unique approach to tackle them that goes even beyond the decision-making processes. And with a creative twist, you find that you can have to navigate through the ethical dilemmas with confidence, and you'll be able to navigate the minefield or the which we are talking about with complex decisions to make and as a leader and come out successfully. So we first of all have to be visionary. You have to have compassion. You have to have a collaborative approach as well, and be able to work with others. Because if you stand out as an island, then you're bound to facing big challenges. But when you bring other heads, then you can have workable solutions which can help you sail through successfully. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Patricia. Then we look at some decisions being taken, sometimes out of excitement. Sometimes the decisions are ethically right, and then maybe if you also look at the denomination of values, the decision you're taking is right, but then it compromises sometimes the values of the institution. What do you do in such a situation?
That shows that there's really conflict, because I think how can your denominational values, your personal values, and how you
as an individual
compromise
as an individual, but the organization has a different twist of things.
I think there's a moral compass that's absolutely wrong, because when somebody sets their values, more likely than not, there are things that it will never cross-cut. There are things that it will never conflict with. For example, why would an organizational values conflict with your religious beliefs, your denominational beliefs, and also cross-cut into your personal and different beliefs?
No, then this is what we like the example I gave you last time. What we discussed last time. For instance, someone says for you to in order to give you this particular offer, maybe we are giving you 15 million. But you're signing 13. You're getting 13 in cash, but you're signing 15. And this is how the institution gains. But when you look at yourself professionally, you're doing a wrong thing. And probably your denominational values do not. But this is the system in the institution you're working
That
with.
is crime.
Yes.
That is crime. And we need to be able to cut between what is right and wrong. Because our professions are our mission. We are on mission ground. So if you're on mission ground, I don't think you would be able to compromise with that one. You come out clear and say, well, my personal principles and values, I can't take this.
Do you resign from the job?
Well, if they want to throw you out on the basis of that, please throw me out.
Yes.
Throw me out, but for standing for the truth. But that is something which is compromise. Compromising your standards as a Christian, compromising even the standards of the institution, because if we are fighting corruption, why should we be encouraging that? That's a bribe, that's a tip, that is theft, that is, playing with the resources. Diana, please.
Thank you, Dr. Patricia. I think illegality and ethical dilemmas, there's a thin line between it, but it's different per se. Because illegality in the end means that the law completely prohibits. And so you're going to find yourself behind bars because of the illegality that you're committing. An ethical dilemma is more of crossing the line. When she speaks about whistleblowing, it's a leader where there's been whistleblowing. We take, for example, where somebody did a whistleblowing about sexual harassment. Now, what the leader is stuck with is balancing the reputation of the organization, trying to maintain some semblance of integrity, trying to investigate to find out if there's any truth, and then also managing social media at that. So that's a dilemma. Sometimes that ethical dilemma means that there's going to be a certain strong, let's say there's going to be a strong clamping down on one of the parties. Someone is bound to suffer. But any leader is thinking, how does the organization survive post this particular crisis? So that's what you'd really call. There's not necessarily an illegality, but there's a something that has tackled the value system and the different things. It's at that point, it's just an accusation. And so there are processes you have to follow. There's a reputation of people that is at stake, but there's also a reputation of the organization that's at stake. And because of that, that's the decision you have to make. It's different where you have an illegality, something that is completely banned by the law. And if it's banned by the law, it's something you shouldn't be involved in. But to your scenario, in terms of taking and filling in a different amount, which sadly has become a culture in our country, I think it's quite a difficult situation. But if in many ways take the high road, you will be better for it. Like I said the last time, what man counts, God does not count. You have accountability to your superiors, you have accountability to your family, but above all those levels of accountability, you have an accountability to God. And you're going to answer for that. So if you just start with something small as mismanaging and writing a 2 million deficit, and you think it's going to stop at that level, no. You have sown a seed that's going to continue throughout. The higher you go, you will face the same decisions until you are thrown behind bars for something that you thought was so small. So you have stepped over the line and walked into a place where you will now call mismanaging of funds. You will now say public funds were mismanaged. because you can't prove that you got what you say you got, because you signed for something different. And so you have to differentiate as a leader what is an illegality and what is an ethical dilemma. In the end, it will help you, because the way you handle it will differ. There are things that you will outrightly report to the police, you will outrightly deal with and clamp down. But there are things that will cause you to figure out how to save as many people in the situation as possible. That will be an ethical dilemma.
Thank you. Dr. Patricia, when you find yourself in a dilemma, how do you come out of it? Do you leave it to flow naturally? Or because we've seen some people coming out to pay bloggers to put their names right, the names of the institutions right, or they even go to media houses, they give in money just to prove themselves correct, defending their decisions. Is it really necessary to defend a right decision?
For me, I think it's not necessary to do a lot of work defending a right decision, because the truth always speaks for itself. But ethical dilemmas basically involves having creative and innovative approach to finding solutions to such challenges. Sometimes it also requires a willingness to think out of the box and come up with creative solutions. Think out of the box. Can you provide clarity and specificity on a matter? So sometimes we need to come out and give clarity. But there are people who, even if they know what the truth is, they will refuse to accept the truth. So even if you labor to give clarity on a matter, some people can lock their brains and not want to understand. But navigating ethical dilemmas in leadership positions can really be challenging. But with a creative twist, we can have an approach with confidence and be able to come out. We know, like for us as Christians, normally prayer empowers us as leaders. Prayer empowers our leadership, and having courage solidifies our leadership. And when you've widened your knowledge base and you've kept reading and researching here and there and consulting, you realize that wisdom promotes your leadership to a certain level. So you'll get wisdom to go and consult with the people, with mentors, with people who can encourage you, with people who can give you solutions and give you leads on what to do. And encouragement will support that leadership. So, and also should have also conflict management, because there are certain decisions you take which would actually brew conflict. But as a leader, are you able to manage that? Are you able to put things back to order? Just like you can disorganize your house, but you can rearrange. Yes, like you've heard about institutions doing restructuring, saying we don't need this position, we're going to sack this, we're going to bring new blood in the system, we're going to change this for purposes of building the organization. At the end of the day, when you sail through and come out victorious, you find that you're a much stronger person, the organization is more solid and on a firm ground. So conflict management gives resolve to our leadership, and integrity. Integrity is the most important, because it validates our leadership. At the end of the day, people you're leading will be able to weigh and see whether the decisions you took them with integrity, whether you stood by the principles you stand for, or you are able to compromise. There are some people, when they get shaken, they then compromise and they're like, no, let me depart from this and go by the other perspective. But as a leader, we're supposed to stand strong and firm and defend these principles and values at all times, because purity blesses our leadership. When you come out pure, because a house that is clean from the inside reflects on the outside. People will see and know that Diana said this with all honesty, and it is the truth which we should follow. Yes. So I think navigating these ethical dilemmas really need us to think out of the box, and we'll get creative ideas and come up with workable solutions to help us solve problems, to help us solve situations, to help us deal with some of those challenges, especially in our leadership responsibilities. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Then round up this discussion.
Well, as leaders, your value system is going to dictate for you how to deal with ethical dilemmas. Your moral development will also help you. You start with one idea and set of morals, but as you grow up, your moral development changes. And that should be based, I believe, on your faith as much as possible. And your emotional intelligence, which includes both empathy as well as self-awareness, will guide a leader in how to deal with ethical dilemmas. But in terms of implementation, forming a framework on how you deal with these dilemmas is important, because the framework will now become the basis for which you treat people and how you treat systems and circumstances. And then how you communicate those dilemmas is critical in deciding whether you will fall or rise.
Thank you so much. Dr. Patricia, how do you close this discussion?
I would close by saying, our viewers, let us always stand for the truth and defend the truth and promote the values of fairness, of holiness, of truthfulness, with accountability. When we stand for those principles, we will not go wrong. We will build trust among the people we lead. We will be able to inspire them, because when we inspire them, then we'll get better grounded leaders. And as Christians, we need to be grounded in the word of the Lord at all times, because the word of the Lord has got solutions to a multiplicity of the problems, including these ethical dilemmas. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Patricia. Thank you so much, Dana. And thank you so much, you, our viewers. It's been an interesting discussion. I believe you've learned something out of it. Edrine, Osteen, Mukalazi is my name. I've worked with Brinko, Atikika, Linda, the producer, and Didymus in transmission. God bless you. Meet again. So.